Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Thank you very much, Your Worship. As you may recall, last November, Council adopted the city's corporate strategic plan. This is a critical part of the plan, or a critical part of the plan is to report annually to the community on the status of the priorities identified within the plan. On est devant vous, Monsieur le Maire.
We are before you, Your Worship, and members of the Council, to present the first report.
You today with our inaugural annual progress report. As an overview, these are the components used to produce the annual progress report. We have the strategic plan, which was adopted in November 2013. The plan is composed of core priorities that come from three sources: Council, the community, and the corporation. From these priorities, key performance indicators, or KPIs, were grouped under 5 themes. These KPIs enable us to measure and report on our performance. As in any strategic plan, it is crucial to report back these measurements, which brings us to this annual progress report presentation. Afin d'examiner les résultats du rapport,
The results of the annual report, I would like to talk to you about our municipal strategic plan. We have a reference document for planning and budget. This document gives the staff the information to prioritize. In other words, this plan lines out the objectives, budgets, and for 2012 to 26.
7 core priorities, which include 123 key performance indicators gathered from 3 sources: Council, the community, through the Integrated Community Sustainability Plan developed in April 2011 and received by Council that time, and of course the corporate plan. Les 27 priorités d'abord.
Our 27 priorities, we have 4 categories and 5 priority themes: social, culture, governance.
123 key performance indicators. This is the first year that we are providing Council with a progress report. In this inaugural year, all of the indicators did not have the required measurable data available, i.e. census data. So on this slide, you can see that out of the 123 indicators, 37, or 30%, did not have data available. The subsequent slides will provide information relating to 70% of the KPIs where data was available. So in other words, there were better than 80 key performance indicators, something that no other municipality in this province has ever attempted or ever done. Now, after compiling all of the available information, this slide shows our final results after our first year of tracking results taking into 5 themes. We have a success rate of 70% against those measurable, those KPIs. And are we completely satisfied with this first attempt? No. But this does provide us with a strong baseline as we actually move forward. I do want to highlight the yellow category, 13%. This signifies that we missed our key performance indicator targets by 10% or less in 13% of the cases where we actually had data. In these instances, we were very close to hitting the goal, but came just short because of direct or indirect factors. On that basis, one could argue that we achieved closer to 80% rather than 70%. Let's get into a little bit of detail here. First of all, I'd like to take some time to go over the results of the 5 themes, and starting with the environment. This chart shows that 57% of the KPIs were a success. However, 29% in yellow of the KPIs were missed by a mere 10% or less. Obviously, we can improve on some of those. And if you look at the actual ones that we missed by 10%, Your Worship, I can explain to you give you a couple of examples. Our target in terms of the number of water main breaks per 100 kilometers of water distribution pipe, for example, which is a very granular measurement, it's a very detailed measurement, right? It was supposed to be less than 10. we actually had 10.6. So we gave ourselves a fail at, but it's less than a 10% variance, right? The annual total cost of wastewater collection and treatment per capita served, our target was less than $186, and our actual cost was $200. Okay, so these are not huge misses. They're not significant in terms of the performance of the municipality. The total annual cost of water treatment and distribution per capita served, our target was 238. The actual result was 245. So in some of these cases, what we're realizing is perhaps our targets might have been a little bit aggressive. But at least it was a good try in some of these things, and we hit the majority of them. On the environment, where we say we didn't achieve 14%, one of the environmental challenges that we gave ourselves, one of the performance indicators, was the percent of transit operating costs recovered by revenues earned from passenger fares, as well as other operating revenues in relation to Kodiak Transit. Okay, our actual target was 29.9% or more for 2013, and our actual was 22.7. Well, we all know why that happened. There was a lockout for 5 months, right? So if you look at some of these in detail, you'll realize why they were not actually achieved. Another example was the budget allocation for resurfacing and reconstruction costs recapitalization. Our target was 9.5. We actually put in the budget $4.745 million. And that was a result of significant amount of growth projects for the year in the budgets, both capital and operating, including the Barry Mills Road project, the Ryan Road project, and the Killam Roundabout. All of those projects led to less recapitalization in the capital budget. So that's the reason. So there's always a reason behind some of these KPIs why we didn't reach them, or we hit them at less by less than 10%. Okay. On culture, le thème axé sur la culture est clairement celui.
Those are the ones that we know the most success according to the figures, because we reached already 90% of our objectives. It's very encouraging. According to the recreation and parks and grants given and entrance costs to Magnetic Hill. If we look at 10% where we failed,
when we failed to meet the target, which said $1.5 million would be allocated budgetarily towards the completion of Parks and Recreational Master Plan, and we actually put in $1 million in the budget. The fact is, the budget was reduced in 2014. However, we can continue with continue with the actual plan, as funds were remaining in previous authorities to complete the outstanding projects that were contemplated in any case. So did we really miss the target? I would argue not really, right? We can also argue on our culture that, and many have argued on this council, that we should be making more investments in culture. So depending on your perspective, is 90% a success? Perhaps. Could we do more? Of course, you could always do more, right? On the social theme, we do have some work to do, as 31% of our targets were missed. We will need to enhance our efforts in addressing these priorities to improve the results going forward. Clearly. Among the successes, however, we did achieve our target of reducing property crime by 5%. Our final reduction was 16.7% on property crime. We also managed to reduce our violent crime rate by 26.6% when the goal was 5%. In fairness, we have to recognize that we don't have direct influence on these, as the RCMP is responsible for our policing services. They've done an excellent job and continue to do so. Obviously, some of these targets are not totally in our control, but do have an impact on our report. And while we have work to do in this area, our successes are worth mentioning, like the work of the RCMP. I'd like to talk a little bit about some of the failures on the social side in some of these KPIs. For example, on food security, we were hoping to put at least 1 or more hectares of municipal land provided for agriculture. we didn't have any. The reality is that we're actually working now and have been creating an inventory of good quality arable lands within the municipality, and this is coming out of Jack's shop and Rod's shop. And we're exploring the feasibility of conserving future agricultural land designation within city boundaries, include community gardens and those kinds of things. So we actually didn't put a hectare of land under production, but we were working towards it, right? Under active living, we said we'd complete the North End Centre. Well, we just heard about the North End Centre. I don't need to go into more detail about that. We know where we are. Our average fire response time, we had talked about a target of less than 3 minutes. Our actual target hit was 3 minutes and 19 seconds. The truth is, Council approved a standard in 1990 of 4 minutes or less. And that's an example of choosing an aggressive target. And our Chief Arsenal will take credit for this. We chose an aggressive target. We wanted to beat 3 minutes. And he's actually working hard right now with his team to try to beat that in the coming year. One of the exercises we're going through right now is making sure that our firefighters exit the fire station within 60 seconds, and they're actually conducting drills in that area. So we're working towards a more aggressive target than the council actually adopted previously. Okay, so those are just a couple of examples of things that we actually didn't put in place. The last one I'd like to mention there was under housing choices and affordability. We said we would put one or more municipal lots to be provided for affordable housing per year. In that particular year, we had 0. Now, I know this year there was 1 lot put up, I believe, that we all know about, and so there was a target. We didn't meet in that current year, but at least we have something we can say we did since that time. Under the economy, we see once again a relatively high number of slightly missed targets, 21%. Among the near missed is our new residential units created per capita. We're targeted at 300 new homes and we achieved 287. So we were off by 13. You have to put it into context, right? On the positive side, we did reach some great successes. We managed to increase our assessment per square foot in the BIA. The target was $30 per square foot, and we reached $32.95, which is almost a 3% gain, right? Which is good. And there again, we're working on an incentive program in the downtown. That's another initiative that council is interested in doing, and we're doing some good work in that area. And as the economy remains a crucial component of our success, we will continue to refocus on our energies on moving the KPIs currently in the red to the green. So a few more comments on the economy, Your Worship, on some of our targets missed. You know, we talked about having 2 concerts, one to two concerts at Magnetic Hill in 2013. We had none. We all know reasons why. We talked about the number of tools and incentives provided by the city. We'd have 1 or more. Well, we know we're working with the downtown group now to create some, right? We talked about percentage of building permit applications reviewed within the council-approved timeframes. We talked about the, in terms of plumbing, we talked about less than 2.31 days. Our actual turnaround on plumbing permits were 2.61. That's a failure, but it's certainly not a significant one, right? Our small permits, less than 4 days, we hit 5.29 days on small permits. We need now, of course, our ongoing service review is providing much more accurate data, and I know that our chief building inspector is working hard with their staff to correct some of these and try to bring these targets more in line with what we can actually do. So those are some of the examples under the economy that we've been working on. The last one is governance. Enfin,
Very positive, 82%, because we have a good mayor and a good council. That's why. Agreed? We're all agreed on that. These results are explained by changes with rates for insurance and accidents at work compared to previous years. Target was 10%, reduced by 15.9%. Another example, operation costs and management organization, less than 1% of the operational budget, and we reached 1.3%. So we're efficient on that side. On the other hand, if we look at governance, things that we haven't reached, our objectives,
excluding Kodiak Transpo. You'll recall the baseline year of 2007, we had 1,147 days of lost time due to workplace industries in this organization. Pretty staggering amount of days. The target for 2013 was less than 150 days. We actually hit 167 days. So when you look at the period of time between 2007 and 2013, the organization has made significant progress in terms of reducing lost time injuries at work. Did we hit the target of less than 150? No. Came pretty close. Very proud of that achievement across the organization, and I want to especially point out folks like Jack McDonald and his team who have been working very, very hard on that in that area, along with our Department of Human Resources and Lorraine and her team as well. You know, again on governance, we talked about our external legal costs per $1,000 of municipal operational and capital expenditures. Our target was less than 36 cents. Our actual was 63.1 cents. So those have been elevated for the past number of years, and a business plan is currently underway to consider the value of adding a solicitor to the legal department, enabling the bulk of outside work to be performed internally. So there's a message from a KPI that says maybe you should look at that, maybe you can actually be more efficient. You had another lawyer full-time as opposed to contracting all that out, right? So there are lessons learned in all of these things. I'd like to bring your attention to one last point. One last point under governance. Our TIPA was a brand new initiative that legislation was brought in by the province, and we were directed by the province, legislated by the province to be responsive to request to access to information requests like any other, like the provincial government does, and we put in some pretty good measures there, and our target was the percentage of our TIPA requests handled within 30 days. That it should be 95% or more. Our actual was 92%, which is actually a tremendous, even though we didn't hit the number right on 95, 92% is exceptional. And in fact, we were recently recognized nationally. So Barb and her team got national recognition. I think we're neck and neck with St. John's, Newfoundland in terms of how efficient and effective our responses to requests for access to information is. So that's even though we didn't hit the target of 95%, we may have overreached our bar, but at the end of the day, 92% and national recognition is pretty darn good. So I have to thank Barb and Nick in particular for the great work they're doing there. In conclusion, Your Worship, I don't know if I can go back here. Can I go back one slide? There we go. In conclusion, I want to bring back the total results for all 123 KPIs that were looked at. Our results are something that we can build upon. I want to stress that we as a corporation have done almost 80% of what we do very well, and council staff and citizens should be proud and thankful for the hard work and dedication, for all your hard work and dedication to the city. We now have a tool and a proper baseline to measure the entire corporation's performance. Over the next few months, we will reevaluate some of the indicators to make sure we are measuring them properly and also remain relevant to our collective purposes. And we're working hard to try to capture the other KPIs that we weren't able to get data for. Some of these are out of our control. There's just Stats Canada information that wasn't available. We will also be enhancing our efforts in relation to targets we collectively failed to meet. No other municipality in this province has gone through such an extensive process and practices such a high degree of transparency, which is what this is all about. This exercise provides valuable data to help us plan and execute Council's priorities. We have chosen to be open and transparent by showing residents how we fare in different areas. Council leads the way, Your Worship, by setting priorities, and we are now measuring ourselves against them on an annual basis. And I would say here that Council ought to review its priorities fairly shortly. We have 17 priorities, probably several too many, in my opinion, in all fairness. And I think those priorities are it's probably time to review those, because it's been some time since you actually established them. But nonetheless, if you maintain your current priorities or you change your priorities, we will make sure the KPIs are in place to make sure that we can report on them. So, at the end of the day, this is a very positive step for our citizens in terms of the never-ending road to service excellence. It is a never-ending road. We will never be 100% at everything we do. It's literally impossible as an organization. This is an organization that has many, many tentacles, many people in it, at the governance level, at staff level, and the partnership level, in the community. And these reports are all about what we do as an entire community, right? So it's a never-ending road to service excellence. And I realize this is a quick overview of a very detailed document. So for more information on our results, I encourage our residents and council to visit our website for the entire progress report starting this Wednesday evening. It's not up yet. It'll be up on Wednesday evening. And I want to thank you for your attention. Merci beaucoup. Take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Mr. City Manager. I don't have any questions. You've given us lots and lots of detail here. There's a very detailed report. I do want to say this. First of all, we have held ourselves to account. We've held ourselves to a pretty high standard in the sense that if you come close, it doesn't count. You've described a number of near misses, really close to the target, and if we don't make the target under these criteria, we give ourselves a fail. It's either pass, fail. So I think the fact that we have not given ourselves credit for the ones where we were very close lends some credibility to this. I think that we should, in fact, be holding ourselves to a high standard. I think people in Moncton have every right to expect that we will do that. And we've, done reasonably well, but we can and we should and we will do better. I want to thank you and everyone who put effort into this progress report, and we'll look forward to seeing how we do in the days and months to come. Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Councillor Thériault.
Merci, Monsieur le Maire. Merci.
Thank you, Mr. Dubé, for this presentation. It's an excellent initiative. My only question is concerning culture, and I know that I may be a pain a little bit with this, but if I look at the draft here under culture, why did we not include the cultural plan of our city? Because there are deadlines, timelines. The plan was adopted by council, and maybe this is where or with which we should measure ourselves. I see that immigration is here, but we have a plan that is excellent and that is very detailed, as a matter of fact. So might it be something to revisit? Yes, absolutely. It's a first. I may point out some measures, some indicators, contributions, grants per capita. We included that as an indicator or a measure. We also included the cost per capita in operations, in culture. Also, the amount of public art pieces per year, we indicated that as a measure. And I'm proud to say that we established 3 pieces, the cost of $370,000. But there are many other measures that we could, it would be a good idea maybe to ask the committee to advise us on this. But we're definitely open to other measures if council wants to add some. Yes, I think it'd be important to sit with the Arts Council, because we do have an Arts Council that is and chaired by citizens of the city and who do an excellent work, and they could also contribute to this project. So maybe for the next step. Thanks. Thank you, Your Worship.
Pour la présentation.
Thank you, Jack, for the presentation. I think that it's a good way to present things. My question still would be, as we go forward, you have a baseline year, and looking at this, there were variations. So some things were clear. You had figures, and afterward you aimed for a number on which you were basing yourself for the future. But there are others where it's like guesswork. So I was wondering maybe if you had a way of creating something, of coming up with something that would be more objective. For example, when you
the average time for fire calls, for example, and the average rate is about 4 minutes.
Right.
Having the target is 4 minutes, but where I question was the baseline. The baseline to me tells me that that's something that is there, and that's not what was said sort of in the explanation. So that's the only thing that I'm looking at this, and for example, like small permits under 4 days, your average turnaround time was 7.59 days in 2012. And it's great to have a target of, you're saying your baseline is under 4 days, but your actual is 7.59 days. So then you set a target of 5.29 days, and your actual target then was less than 4 days. Just for consistency moving forward, I think that's something I would sort of like to see. There was a few things here in terms of just the years. I think the way things are outlined and how they're measurable, I think is great. And I think that, we revisit those, but those are just something that I pointed out. And I'm looking at I know there are two versions. I was looking at the short version that you had highlighted, just on that example, for example,
Right.
the small permits.
Yeah, on the small permits, first of all, appreciate your comments on, the target, effectively the target for 2014 was less than 4 days.
Right.
We actually hit 5.29 days, which is effectively a reduction of more than two. If you look at it in perspective, our target was fairly aggressive, given the fact we're taking a 7.59 days. Now, in fairness, we thought we could reach that. That's a fairly aggressive target. You're talking about almost half, not quite half. Now, we didn't go there. We didn't get there. In fairness to the building inspection group, we were in the process of re-engineering processes there too, right? We're doing process mapping and trying to figure out what was going on there at the same time. So, there was, I believe that in that case, we did fairly well, comparatively speaking to 2012, but we still didn't meet the target. The target of less than 4 days, I could argue was maybe aggressive, but we still think as an organization that it's doable. So it's giving those building inspectors and our chief building inspector a target to try to reach. And in speaking with the business community, the development community, that's a target they would appreciate us hitting, right, on average, right? So at least we're working towards it.
No, and I understand that, and I think that those are, maybe the mayor sort of pointed a little bit towards that, where, there are a lot of successes here.
Yes,
You
absolutely.
set a target, you don't quite get to it, but you're much better
Yeah.
than you were in the beginning.
Absolutely.
My only difficulty when I was reading this was baseline to me is a starting point, and it could be referred to the starting point that you currently are today. Then you
Yes.
can have a target, and then you sort of measure
Yeah.
it that way. That's all I was saying.
Yeah,
So-
I guess what we have now is sort of like, we
But-
really have sort of two baselines in a sense. I mean, the baseline that I want to deal with from on a go-forward basis is 2013,
Correct.
right?
Yes.
Before that, It's good information to have, it's a good reference point, but 2013 really becomes the baseline.
Well, yeah, so moving forward, the baseline
That's
will
our
be
real-
your
that's our real
actuals.
results now, right?
Will be your actuals of 2013 that will become your baselines.
That's right.
And that's what I found a little bit confusing on this. But other than that, I mean, in terms of laying it out and being consistent on measuring the same things every year, I think is very commendable.
Yes, it's
Great to
pretty
see that
important.
as a municipality, you know, you've initiated this, and you know, I commend you and certainly Claude Després and the staff in Strategic and all the other staff members that were involved. So
Thank you.
certainly from that perspective, it's a real eye-opener, and it really does add a lot of transparency and allows for, at a glance, allows you to see things that, you know, that you should be acting on.
Right.
When those numbers go up, well, then obviously you look at them, so.
And we're really anxious to hear back from the public too, because ultimately the customer is the public, right? That's our prime customer here, and we'd like to hear more feedback from our customers in terms of some of this information, right? Anxious to hear that.
And I do share your thoughts in and around priorities and how priorities as a council, and also in terms of our other plans, as alluded to by Councillor Terrio, in terms of the cultural plan, that we make all of that blend in. So I think there's some things that we probably can smooth out here, but overall, it's a great start, and I'm happy to see that the amount of detail, I'm sure, and work that's gone into this. It looks easy to read somewhat in terms of its representation, but there are a lot of hours in there, so.
There's
Yeah.
a lot of patients sitting over there in the corner, and Claude Després.
Yeah, so. Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor.